Hello, everyone. We are going to start semifinals in this room, Server America 2, at 23:30 CAT PM. The motion for this round is this House will prohibit pharmaceutical companies from enrolling uninsured patients in clinical trials. So now the debaters are preparing the motion and have 15 minutes. So 23:50 CAT, the debate starts.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Could all the teams please indicate that they're back in the debate room? I'm just gonna post this link about timing and POI. Also, in the interest of time, please just say your gender when you speak if you have a gender.
What I think that happened in this case is that either there are insurance company like that, then the pharmaceutical company pays.
Second opposition, please go to the debate room. Time's up.
Okay. Okay. I see.
Thank you, Gabriela. Could all teams please get an indication that you're here? Start.
Team Controversial and Team GABI PRIOLLI is here.
Yes, we're here.
Okay, thank you. I think we're just waiting for Team Controversial. Yeah, it looks like they're still in the prep. See, I'm just sorting it out. But while we wait, hi everyone, my name is Komola Khamani, the H is silent. And I would just like my panelists to introduce themselves while we wait for the team so that we can start the debate. Okay, it looks like everyone is here. Without further ado, I'd like to call upon the Prime Minister to start the debate. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna start in 3, 2, 1. So good night, everyone. So this house will prohibit pharmaceutical companies from enrolling uninsured patients in clinical trials. So first of all, I want to clarify what is an insured patient. This is a person who is not covered by insurance on his health or life. And by clinical trials, we understand that it's a research, evaluate tests and treatment. Either effect. Someone is making noise. Could you please mute your mic? Thank you. So clinical trials is a research to evaluate tests and treatments and see their effects on human health. And we don't really know the outcomes. So that's why they call clinical trials. So we don't know if this is going to be positive or negative in the people's health. So first of all, what we need to what would be the best way for pharmaceutical companies to achieve their goal without affecting their patients in a irresponsible way or directly way. So my first argument based on this is that people without a health or life insurance are putting their lives at risk in participating in clinical trials, because the way that they work is that you inject or treat a person with different type of medication that can affect their health in the long term or in the short term. Because we don't know the outcome, we are not sure if this is going to be good or bad for that person. So in that way, people that don't have an insurance, they don't have any protection if it's unsuccessful, and knowing that we don't know the outcomes or the side effects that they might have during the treatment, they're not only putting their life at risk, but also their families are involved. So in the worst case that this person who doesn't have an insurance die, their families are unprotected as well, because they have to cover all the payments for the funeral and everything, because they didn't have a life insurance or a health insurance. Or in the case the trial is unsuccessful, the family and the person has to pay for future treatments because this was affecting negative in his health. So for us, I think the solution is to use insured patients that have a health cover, clinical trials, to the consequence that this can bring. And because we believe that life should be valued more than the economic part. So we pharmaceutical companies shouldn't expose people who has no protection for what they want to achieve. In this way, what pharmaceutical companies do is they do these trials because they're looking for profit, for economic reasons. Yeah, sure, some of them want to find a cure for different disease, but at the end of the day, what they do is just to make rich. They want to be rich because when they find a cure for a disease or a treatment for a disease, they sell the patent, they sell the medicines in a really high price to everyone. And we understand for this is the only purpose for all the process is just because they want profit out of it. So some companies even take advantage of vulnerable people, because at the end of the day, this person who hasn't have insured for their health or their life is vulnerable. It's vulnerable because they don't have any protection. So these companies, these pharmaceutical companies, are taking advantage of these vulnerable people to make their trials and then get profit out of it. And it shouldn't be like this, because we should protect people's life and not look for a way to just take advantage of them. So in this way, what companies should do is to show accountability and transparency during this process, during these clinical trials. And in this way, when they use insured patients, they can create accountability for future trials, or even for the government when they want to show that show different reports of advantages and disadvantages of different treatments, so people can acknowledge this and decide to participate, but knowing they are protected not only by the law, but because they have a health or life insurance. I have the point from Alice.
Prime Minister, your framing is completely wrong because a clinical trial is not to see if a drug works or don't work. The standards to have a clinical trial are extremely hard. You first have to have lab trials, then you have to have animal trials. The clinical trial is only to monitor short-term effects and to monitor if the drug really works.
Exactly. So yeah, you said the last phrase is to see the outcomes and the effects of the drugs they are using for that trial. So a clinical trial is basically okay, they have a treat or they have a test and they see the effects on human health, but they don't really know the outcomes. They don't really know the effects. So at the end of the day, people's lives are in danger. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for that speech. I'd now like to call upon the Leader of Opposition to open the case for us. Here.
Well, first of all, I'd like to ask if all of you can hear me. I'd like to make sure of that. Please say yes on the chat so I can just continue with my speech. Perfect.
Yes.
Honorable Chair, debaters. The clash of this debate, as proposed by the government, is understanding and reducing the risk of the volunteers. The point of this debate is the comparison between two main scenarios of benefits and damages promoted by clinical trials in patients, and if they are on their own capacity of consenting satisfactorily. Well, first of all, I'd like to clarify what is the scenario we're talking about. So, before clinical trials, we have laboratory development, laboratory tests, then we have animal trial, then we have human adequacy tests, and then we finally reach clinical trials, which are 2 or 3 on average. We're not here talking about placing patients on the first steps of trials during the development of certain medicines, as the government tries to defend. We have at least 5 to 7 steps of trials and reassurance before going to clinical trial. At this point, the medicine is mostly proven to have no immediate risks for life or extremely dangerous ones. We're mostly exploring what are the short-term effects or how to reduce side effects of this medicine. But now that we have that clarified, I'm going to explain the reasons why this motion is completely flawed. So first of all, the patients give their consent to participate. They're not kidnapped or they're not forced against their will. We are here talking about freedom. This person has the knowledge of the risk they're taking and have several reasons to do so. We're not talking about someone who's volunteer for torture or for something that is unknown to them. Before trials happen, there's a long process of telling what are the possible side effects or any effects at all. There's a mandatory long process for obtaining consent, signing agreements, and informing the patient. When in the hypothesis of this informational process not happening, it can be submitted to legal liability procedures, and it is possible for the volunteer, the patient, to look for solutions through law and negligence of the company on conducting the trials. So no, we're not here talking about an imminent risk that those trials can cause. We're not here talking about a company that will not inform this patient. And first of all, and most important of all, we're not here talking about a patient that doesn't know the effects that can happen to them, and they make this choice on their free will. The justification for individuals undergoing harm in the clinical trials is normally that they, or people like them, will benefit in the future from it, even considering the potential, even though minimal, harm that can come from it. It is with that point that I now go to the second element of analysis, the reasons behind risking yourself in a trial without insurance. So we are here talking about an imminence or emergency. Sometimes people have no other solution. It would be the case, for example, of terminal cancer patients who have no expectancy or other possible way, and in this context, decides to engage on trials with a feeling of hope. He or she could not wait for the medicine. They have nothing to risk, and they volunteer. It's great for the company who would be able to see the effects in practice, and there's no damage for the patient who's already in risk. It is his last hope. A second possible example is the case seen at the trials for HIV medicines and precaution measures in the 80s and 90s. Back then, there was a huge problem with contamination related to prostitution. The group, mostly composed by women, was in imminent risk of death and spreading the disease for others among a situation of epidemics. The disease was still mostly unknown. No other approved medicine, but several in trials. The immediate medical answer was to search for volunteers among those women to take part on the clinical trials, giving them access to the medicine that was already really well developed, as I have already said, due to the steps required by the industry. This way, those women got access to the medicine 1 or even 2 years before the official approval. They were highly exposed to the HIV, and the trials were a way to allow them to access the medicine and the solution immediately. The patients are adults who are in the plain possibility to consent or to deny their participation. They do it because they see it as the best solution. The government talked about life insurance and house insurance, so they framed that they are mostly worried about the financial point and not about the health either way. They pose for that the pharmaceutical companies are taking advantage of vulnerable people. But this is not the only or most adequate lenses to look at the problem. It is the worst case scenario, one that is solved by the notion of personal freedom to volunteer. As I have just proven, there are several advantages for getting free access for medicine in the last phase of trials when it's almost 100% safe and up for evaluation. So before I continue, I'll give my PLI to Gabriela.
I have a question regarding your example you just mentioned about a clinical trial. So could you tell me how many people had an insurance when doing the trial, and how many people didn't have insurance, and what happened to them? Because that's a question that you don't. I don't know if you don't if you do know that, but I'm sure that if they get medicine about that, they didn't come with the economic.
Time is up. Your time is up. You're wasting time from my speech. And second of all, I don't believe that your point is relevant at all, because we're here talking about that the insurance is not a really important access for adult that is volunteering in a safe step of trials for a reason that only he or she can explain, and that might be an imminent danger, such as in the case of cancer, or such as in the case of being already sick with a deadly disease. We don't care if we're not here talking about health insurance, as the first government said. So what is the point of health insurance if the only thing that you're risking is your health that is already at risk? You have the possibility of achieving healthcare or medicines or treatment in a faster way. You have no other solution, or any other solution have already been attempted. You're going to die either ways, or you're in a really high risk of dying. And then you have your perfect consent as a grown-up that is required, with a long terms and a really long list of terms and agreements for you to sign, attesting that you have that consent, attesting that you have the possibility to consent, and that you're willing to take that risk because of the benefits that it may cause. And then you think about this situation with me. We're here talking about people that are both in a perfect condition to attest that they want to participate in that regardless of their insurance. And they are willing to put themselves at what you call risk. And we said that the risk is mitigated in ways. And then this person wants to do that. Doesn't matter if she's going to get paid, because that is the point. So thank you very much. I'm really proud to oppose.
Thank you, Leader of the Opposition. Just before we call the Prime Minister, could I please remind all speakers that a point of information is only supposed to be 15 seconds long, so please respect the other speakers. Without further ado, I'd like to call upon the Deputy Prime Minister. Here, Yola.
Okay, thank you. Just to be sure, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Okay, good. Okay, so I'm starting in 3, 2, 1. Okay, panel, first of all, we have to clarify something. opposition is assuming that actually a person that has a fatality illness is a person that doesn't have an insurance. So we have to clarify that I can have cancer and I can have an insurance, and the other case as well. So are those different scenarios. I'm gonna start with the rebuttal. First of all, they say that actually the final phase is the laboratory. The patients have faced or the medicine have faced some other phases, but actually we consider that most cases the medicine or the cure doesn't represent a highly risk, but in some specific cases they could kill the patients, and we consider that every single life matters. So in this scenario, even most cures could not affect just for these few cures that could affect directly the lives of the patients. We consider they have to care about that. Secondly, let's say that because of the patient's consent and they signed an agreement, this is good to do this activity, but actually panel, we have to think what kind of people signed, what kind of uninsured patients signed these trials. Most of these people is poor people that is taking to try to take advantage economically for these kind of activities, because they actually have a kind of revenue, they get profit about exposing their bodies to some unexpected or undesired cure. So if you think that poor people is using this to get money, probably more people will increase this activity. These people won't see another way to get money and will be a kind of drug addict. Because panel, we have to be clear that actually most medicines have some kind of effect of addiction. So poor people that I have proven that actually is this kind of uninsured patients could be drug addicts. Third, they said about some individual cases, and they actually mentioned about the cancer and what would happen if you don't have another way, and you have to take advantage of this only solution for your life. First of all, we consider that the companies that are trying to find a cure for some specific illness like cancer or another highly risk illness, these kind of companies follow the requirements, the standard presented by the World Health Organizations. So in this case, these companies cannot allow them to use this kind of patients. They usually offers to the patients a kind of insurance, and actually they have to be aligned with a kind of a standard with some organizations like the World Health Organizations. Now I'm gonna start with my arguments. First of all, it's about ethics. So we
I'm
have
sorry, Prime Minister. I'm going to pause your time at 3 minutes 18 seconds.
Okay.
There's a speaker that says they can't hear. Let me just double check. But I do have your notes that you just finished your rebuttals and you're about to start your positive matter. So I am there. I just want to double check.
With everyone else, say it if you clear.
It's a member from closing opposition.
All right.
Me?
Let me lead.
No. I don't think it's you. Everyone can hear you. It's just one person.
Okay.
Just let's sort it out. I'm so sorry for the interruption. I just thought so that everything is fair, you know.
Okay, so now?
I don't have confirmation from them. I think everyone can hear you.
Yeah, could you please write if you can hear me clearly?
Yeah. Let me just see. Siamo. Okay, my panel.
I think it's a matching problem.
I think we're going to continue. Okay. So sorry, Deputy Prime Minister, but please continue, and I'll be starting your time from 3 minutes 18 seconds, and you're about to tell us about your positive matter.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, panel. So I continue with my arguments. Panel, we have to think about ethics. Ethics is an important issue within pharmaceutical companies. Why? Because as you know, most of the companies are trying to save lives. So in this scenario, they have to care about every single detail in the life. So if they think just about the economic purpose, as Gabriela already explained it, they are losing the weight of why they were established. So in this scenario, using insured patients proves that some people are considered more important than others. Why? Because ethics in medicine should cover every single life. And if I'm taking advantage of this uninsured people, why? Because obviously they have the situation in which they can't put in risk their life. So I'm proving to the world, to the society, that I'm taking advantage of these lies because they present less requirements. They are cheaper in a financial context to take advantage or to try my cure. So in this scenario, we highlight the importance of all lives. So ethics is an important issue, and if you allow these pharmaceutical companies to enroll in this kind of patients, you are showing to the world that some lives are more important than others. So my second argument in this scenario is about the message that people receives in terms of what kind of people is taking this kind of trials. First of all, as I already told you, we consider that these kind of people are poor people that are trying to get money from this activity. So first of all, if more people are looking that actually this is good, we can get money from that, we're gonna try to do the same, and we're affecting poor people. When in this scenario, we have to, sorry, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, Deputy Prime Minister, I can hear you.
Okay, so I'm continuing. So in this scenario, it's not just about what kind of people are you choosing to use your cures to try to these kind of clinic trials. The message that the society receives is more important in this scenario because poor people is affecting directly because they don't have the support, they don't have the economic resources to get an insurance, and they are trying to get money in this way. So we consider that the most important in this case is about the ethics that the companies, pharmaceutical companies, should have, and the message that the society receives when pharmaceuticals company use these kind of people to prove their cures. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. I'd now like to call upon the Deputy Leader of this chamber. Here.
Can you all hear me right now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh,
can everyone please?
Okay, nice. What? Please, if you could write the POIs in the chat, please. Just a second. Can you please, all the teams, confirm that you are listening to me in the chat, please? Okay.
Yeah. Another.
Okay. Then just a second. Panel, ethics in protecting life is a really important thing, and everyone here agrees on that, and everyone in the pharmaceutical industry also agree on that. Because of many unsucceeded clinical trials a few years ago, such as the thalidomide trial that had really bad side effects, is why we have like really high standard to put a drug on clinical trials today. As Bruna explained here, what we have is that a clinical trial is usually the fifth or sixth part of a test, and today, given the technology we have the ability to monitor if the drugs will have life danger before putting it on humans. That's why clinical trials nowadays are really, really, really safe for people who take parts in them, because we've learned from our experiences, and now from happen with people that have a higher chance of having a cure or a better quality of life than having the probability of dying. If we say that every single life matters, then the most lives that are in danger are of those people who will not have access to a cure and nothing at all. Also, the point of people getting addictions from the treatment, it's not like very plausible here, because those people are monitored by doctors all day long, and the probability that they will become addicts to drugs is more likely if they have no access to healthcare versus if they have access to a doctor that is really accompanying how they are doing with medicines and stuff. The pharmaceutical companies have all the incentives in the world to care about the side effects. So the main side effects that a drug can have that we prove that are not so high as the government says, they are also very monitored by those people, because the really interest of pharmaceutical companies is that those people survive and that these clinical trials goes well, and they can like treat those people, because that's how they get profit from it. But we have like a real problem here that most of the people will not have access to those medicines, because when those medicines pass the clinical trials, they undergo huge patent laws that make the medicine so hard for them to ever get. So participating in clinical trials is most likely the only opportunity that a person with a serious illness will ever have to getting near to a cure or to a better standard of life. But we have another research problem here, is that when you do not consider that people that have not access to healthcare, and usually poor people, you are having like a very biased source of trial, because those people, they usually have different diets, they usually have like different forms of labor, for example manual labors, and they have different material conditions from people that are richer. If you only test in people that are richer, you don't know how a drug will develop in an organism that is not always like the best in the world, and most drugs will be specifically designed for organisms of people that have good quality of life, and will not be adaptable to organisms of people that like have to undergo to manual labor every day. So that's a way for companies to understand the quality of all people. That's precisely why drugs are tested not only like in rich countries but also in poor countries, because people from different economic backgrounds have different economic baggage. And also when we talk about we talk about quality of when we talk about psychological trials, for example, when you have a psychological trial that can understand the life of a person that don't have healthcare of a poor person versus the life of a person that is rich and have access to a lot of things in the world, is way better that companies have access to those people so they can develop things that are more likely to those people, and can have a broad understanding that it is only for the benefit of those people that undergo these things. I'll now take a POI from closing, please.
Thank you. But if you're telling me that there are people that these people won't be able to access this medication, well, after the trial is done, they are still not going to be able to access this medication. And even if they get it when they were in the trial, afterwards they won't.
Okay, so but at least they will have access to this medication at some point. And these clinical trials usually undergo to like a very hard period of time. So if it is a thing that really alleviate those people, at least they will have access to that at some point versus not having access at all. So we win on that. And when we think about like potential side effects, it's really better that those people have access when a doctor is controlling them versus not having access at all. People that are rich should not be the only people entitled to have some kind of hope in their lives. That's why clinical trials have huge lines, because clinical trials are a way of you having the access to the latest research, latest advances, latest technology in the world, and access to the best doctors that are really the ones who are innovating. When you undergo a clinical trial, you pass through several tests that can really help with your illness, even if for a short period of time. So it's very hard for the government to prove any of those worst case scenarios because they do not exist for the current scientific standards for clinical trials to have. And it's really hard to then to fight with the metrics of at least those people having a better quality of life for the time that the clinical trial clinical trial is passing, the time that the clinical trial is passing, and to the possibility of companies understanding how these drugs will operate on those people. So drugs will be designed for everyone and not only for the ones who can pay and who can have a good quality of life. That's why we are very proud to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Leader of the Opposition. I'd now like to call upon the Member of Government to open up the second half for us. Here. And also, just to send Marcos, please just write your full names and surnames in order of just before or your point.
Sure. Andrea, if you could go doing that. So just to verify, can anyone hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Can we just get text indication? Anyone? Yes, we got 2 yeses, 3 yeses.
Okay, let me just get my timer while Andrea writes that down.
I didn't listen. I couldn't hear what you said. Please just write your full names, like your name and your surname, in order of speaking, just for the ballot.
So I'm going to start in 3, 2, 1. And now I think in this debate we have had 2 metrics so far, which is the thing that is going to win is the one that proves you in which ward we have better medical trials, as the other party was saying. Also, in which ward we have a better ward for patients. So we're going to talk to you about this first metric. We believe that the ward that is going to have the best word for patient is the one where, first of all, the principles that the medicine goes by are more respected. We're going to talk about that in a second. So we want to talk to you. About another thing that we believe that our opening misses. That is, we're talking here about 2 cases that were brought up already in the debate. First of all, the case on which these people is getting paid for being in these medical trials, and the cases in which they are not. This is just so we understand what are we debating right here, and we're still going to prove you why do we believe that it's better if we just prohibit this in every case. To start, why do we believe that we have a better word for people? We believe that just talking about principles, we believe that medicine has to go by some principles, those principles being, for example, justice and autonomy. And why do we matter if we take into consideration the case that was brought up by OO? And this is where we are also going to start to make some rebuttals. OO mentioned that in these people are completely free and that they are joining these medical trials at their own risk. I believe that this is not the case when we start to think about who exactly are we talking about in this debate. We're talking about people that is either vulnerable, meaning that they are illegal immigrant, and that this is person that has not been nationalized in the country or is not legal in that country yet, or we're still talking about these people that is not rich enough to get um, healthcare on their own and not poor enough to get healthcare paid by the state. When we think about this, we also have to take into consideration that these people already don't have access to healthcare, right? And since they don't have access to healthcare, they can see this medical trial as the only option. And why do we believe that this is so important and this is so wrong that we take them into a medical trial? We believe that these people is not actually free when they join because their options, according to what the OO was saying, was just we either have this or we don't have nothing. So we believe that the narrative that you create, we believe that um, since it's the state, the one that should protect them and the one that already failed to protect them, should at least try to keep them away from every other risk. And we're not talking about that this medical treatment is going to kill you. We believe that maybe that is one case, but this is not what we should generalize in this debate. We believe that even if this medical trial doesn't do any harm to you as it's the best case in OO, we still believe that this is something that goes and undermines the principle of medicine and the principle that the state should defend because these people is not actually free. And if that was the case that OO was bringing to us, they should have proved you why someone that is not free because they don't have options, they live under a dictatorship of no alternative. If they live under this dictatorship, why is it that we consider them free enough to make a completely consensual decision? We believe that this is not the case, and that is one of the reasons why we believe that we should prohibit that these people participate on medical trials because they are not free. That is not true. They are not free enough as to choose this in the best way possible. Talking about principles, we also believe that we there is someone that has to play with the hope of the people. It's definitely not the companies, this type of companies in this case. We believe that this is not the case because what they were trying to do with these companies, well, we already know that these companies are trying to gain profit. That is not what we're going to talk here. We're going to talk about also dignity and how is it that right now in these cases we are compromising the dignity and the integrity of these people because they are not being seen as patients. They are not being seen as someone that they have to protect, someone that the medicine has to protect. They are being seen as rats or as some other stuff that we don't want them to be seen as in this debate. That is another reason why we believe that this is better if we should just prohibit this. Because even in both cases, and this is also when we're going to talk to you about the consequences that this case may bring. We have one case that is when they get paid. They get paid. Well, what is the impact in this point? In this point, the impact is going to be that they are going to start creating this narrative. This was something that opening brought up, but they weren't able to explain, so we're doing it on their own. They're going to get paid, but and when they get paid, this is going to run into a narrative from people in their communities that you are getting paid for this. Also, when this narrative starts to start to expand between them, once this narrative starts to expand between them, they are going to start moving a narrative that it's good to start profiting from their own bodies. We believe that as a state, we should not let that happen, and this is another reason why should we believe we should prohibit this. So the other case that were brought up here, in which is on which they are not getting paid for this. We believe that in that case, then the impact is also something that is going to prove you why this is not good. As for the second metric, that was the in which where we have their medical trials, but before that, I'll take the POI for an opening.
If it is so bad, why is he rich people making lines and wait years to take part in clinical trials? And also, why is profit so bad if profit is for pharmaceutical companies mean more and safer research?
Thank you so much, Alice. We're not saying that medical trials are bad. We're saying that medical trials are bad when you have no other options but to enroll into it. That is when we believe that they are bad. So, talking about the second case, which is why when people doesn't get paid, as to talked about, of why do we believe that we could get better medical trials if we don't do this. We believe that we get better medical trials if we prohibit this because there is something about these type of people, which is first of all that opening was telling to you that we're not going to see how the effects of a medication can depend on with taking one person to another. Well, you can at least still enroll a lot of people that are insured. And second of all, we believe that this is going to get worse in our case, in the case that we don't prohibit this, because if people start doing this, these people won't be able to maybe get all the follow-ups they need after the medical trial is done, which is something that is going to not be good and not be better for the medical trial. Also, we believe that won't be able to access to the medications afterwards, which is something that I was saying on the POI. And this is something that it won't be good for the people that is under this medical trial. So to protect them, to protect the medical trial as well, we believe that we have to prohibit this. Thank you so much, and so happy to propose and happy to debate with Andrea as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Member of Government, for that speech. I'd now like to call upon the member for the opposition to open their case for us. Here.
Am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you. Can we just get an indication from the teams or anyone? Just say yes for the text, please. Have it yet.
Okay, so for POIs, I would prefer that teams speak up instead of typing because I might not have the opportunity to keep viewing the page. Is that okay?
Okay, so you want them to politely interject with their mic.
Yes, please. Okay, so I'll begin in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. From government bench in today's debate, we feel their only problem is on how like these individuals who in most cases buy into volunteering and consenting to being tried or used for clinical trials, how like these people are vulnerable and how they do not and they are not in the best position to do this. But then from closing opposition, what we do in today's debate is prove to you how like where we get better trials, we tell you that on our side of the world, and then secondly show you in what world is better or do we get better output or utility for the patient. Okay, so on rebuttals first, we think that when they talk about vulnerability and how these individuals do not have access to welfare, and so these individuals, like make the worst choices. They tell us that the companies are use these guys because they want to make a lot of profit. We do not think that making a lot of profit is bad, okay? Because in the true idea of being insured, when these individuals are insured, it's not like the companies necessarily are the ones that have to pay when these individuals get sick from this. It's the insurance companies that take the responsibility for the risks involved. But then secondly, we think that when companies have an opportunity to get the same output, the same results, and even as we prove to you, better results in our world at a lesser cost, we think that that is more much more better on our side of the world, because when it is easier and cheaper to get drugs, it becomes cheaper to even make those drugs available for individuals in the society, that when those drugs have passed that stage of testing. Because when it becomes expensive for companies to even go through the phase of testing, we think that it's going to be expensive for companies to go through this phase, because when they have to like bring in individuals who have been insured, the cost that they have to pay when these individuals come for this testing, in cases where they have to pay, because in majority of cases, in majority of times, the companies actually have to pay the individuals who volunteer for testing, and it becomes more expensive because these individuals are already insured, and because of this, covering their health care at that point in time becomes even more expensive. And like something that has been clear from today's debate is how like it's cheaper to get individuals who are as they play them vulnerable in today's debate. But secondly, one which is very important is the fact that the vulnerability of these people is not a choice that was made by them. Okay, their social status that makes them unable to even afford health insurance is not one that we could say is primarily as a result of choices that they consented to, like consciously. Okay, we do not think that these individuals are poor or do not have the ability to get this because they make direct choices that put them in those positions. We think that economic factors and capitalist, oppression in such societies are what makes even poor people make it difficult for them to climb up the social ladder. Why is this important? Because we think that the only way these individuals can even make a choice on, getting something good for themselves, getting something good for their life is through this. When you take away this choice from these people, you force them into a position where they are left with nothing. So when closing government tells you about how like these people are not free, we tell you that the only freedom that they can get is when they are allowed to make a choice on how they can earn and how they can earn a living. We think that there already exists a threat to their life. From opening opposition, they tell you how like majority of these individuals who buy into this are people who are terminally ill and find it very difficult to, and like this, their last hope. In extension from closing, we tell you that majority of these people who also go into this are also individuals who have no other means of livelihood. That's it. Without this, it is clear to assume that these guys are have no other means of livelihood. That is, their life is at risk at the hands of poverty, and they are likely to die if they do not do this, which gives them, some sort of income. We do not think it is moral to take away that consent, that right, that power away from these individuals who society have already placed in a position where they can't even fend for themselves. Okay. But secondly, panel on ethics, we think that like already in status quo, what happens is that there are bodies that regulate how these clinical trials are done. Okay. And these bodies, the committees that exist are committees that ensure that this first and foremost that these pharmaceutical drugs that are being tested have gone through necessary procedures such that are going to be given to the individuals are very minimal. But secondly, on how patient privacy and good clinical protection is being given to these individuals. What this means is that these clinical companies already from the ethical policies take care of any health problems that arise during the course of that testing. Okay, so I think the only problem that government has is for problems that arise after the testing. But we think that these people already get cover from these companies when like they are undergoing this testing. We think this is very important because in that case, it even creates minimal risk of them getting problems and complications after that trial. POI.
Yeah, but we think that we can, even if in the best case scenario for government, we can have medical trials given by the state, and if the worst case scenario, even if we don't have trials, then we at least respect better the medicine and the patient is our side.
Okay, it becomes very, very, what's the word now? It becomes very irrational for government to say, or for the states to say that pharmaceutical companies should not give, should not give clinical trials to individuals who do not have insurance, and then that same state gives that same clinical trial to those individuals who are not insured. Like that is not consistent. Okay, so that doesn't fly. Okay, something else we should tell you from in today's debate. Okay, we think panel on efficiency that no one is left in a bad position at the end of today's debate, because at the end of today's debate, these individuals who would see are poor are people who, at the end of the day, have a better means of livelihood. We do not think it is problematic. We do not think it is problematic when there is a narrative line that it is possible for you to earn, it is possible for you to survive, it is possible for you to get a means of livelihood through this. We do not think this is bad, because what now happens is that it creates more individuals for testing at a cheaper rate. We think this is better if we want to get the best outcome as against when it is expensive. So proud to win from closing opposition.
Thank you, member of the opposition, for that speech. I'd now like to call upon the government whip to close their case for us. Here.
Hi, can you hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you. Can we please just get an indication from everybody else? Just a yes, what the text, please.
Can everyone hear me?
We can hear you from.
Okay. I'll start in 3, 2, 1. So, panel, there are two metrics really important in this debate. Isabel has already mentioned them in her speech. First, where do we have better medical trials? Second, where do we have a better world for patients? Okay, and we are talking here about principles. Principles like autonomy, principles like their dignity. Okay, so we need to do the comparatives with all the cases that opening and closing opposition gave us, and at the end I will do the comparative with the opening government. So what opening opposition says is that these people must take this risk because they are living under with a disease that might be causing a lot of pain to them. But I really think that all their characterization on their case was really, really, really out of this debate. Why? Because they were talking about people, and they assumed, and their characterization fit with people who have this insurance. Okay, this their characterization does not fit with what the debate tells us to debate about, which is uninsured patients. And Isabel has already explained how these people are really vulnerable. So, uh, so we need to understand here something really important, that the dignity of the people is better protected, and dignity of these people, of these uninsured patients, is better protected on our side of the house. Why? Because we are not saying that medical trials are bad at all cases. We say that on this specific case, it's really bad because it vulnerates not only the autonomy of the people, but also their vulnerability, no, their dignity, sorry. And what is the comparative here? The people who are really who have access to the insurance can preserve at least some of their dignity. Why? Because they have mechanisms for protection. If something goes wrong, they can have protection for the secondary effect and things like that. And second of all, they have better follow up when they are making this decision. So if they don't understand something, they can ask to the doctors that they have access to. I think that these people not only have a better autonomy because they can take better decisions, and they do not have they are not in this vulnerable position in which their decisions are really conditioned. What happens? And second of all, that they have that their dignity is better because they have these mechanisms of protection. And at the end of the day, if they do these trials, what happens afterwards is that if something bad happens to them, they can have these mechanisms of protections to towards the secondary effects. Okay, and why do we think that on our side of the house, dignity of these people, uninsured patients, is really vulnerated? Isabel has already explained you how these people who are uninsured patients are uninsured first because they belong to these minorities that are maybe illegal migrants and things like that. But second of all, people who are not rich enough to pay their own insurance and not poor enough to access the insurance of the state. So we have these two people who are really vulnerable, who already are in this vulnerable position. Their decisions are conditioned. Their autonomy is not, they're not really free. Isabel has already proven you how their decisions are really conditioned, really, really conditioned by their situation. But second of all, I think that there is a revictimization of these people. Why? Their dignity has already been vulnerated when the state didn't provide them healthcare, when the state didn't pay attention to them and let them get sick and not have any treatment. I think that if the state keeps allowing these people to access these clinical trials, their dignity is being again vulnerated, and these people are being re-victimized. I think that on a principle level, this is something that we cannot accept as closing government. That's why I think that we protect better the people on our side of the house than what happens on the bench, an opposition bench. Okay, but not only that, we think that there's also something about the consequences of this. Okay, and I think that this what we already explained about the dignity really it's a rebuttal for all the case of opening opposition and for the case of closing opposition, which said that that it is more effective because we have more patients. I think that human life is not really that it's not an object. It's not something you can profit out of. Even if you are going to profit that, at least you have to respect some kind of dignity. And this only happens if we do these clinical trials on people who have this insurance, not with people who do not have this insurance. This insurance. Okay, I think that the case of closing opposition is a really lack of this principle of dignity, really vulnerate the dignity of the people because they see some kind of efficiency on doing this. Okay, but second of all, closing opposition tells us about the freedom of the people that they choose freely to choose. They choose freely to die in this way. I think that even if they choose freely to die this way, their dignity is being vulnerated and they are being re-victimized. That's why we think that even if that happens, it's still wrong and we shouldn't allow it. The state shouldn't allow it. Okay?
You're right.
No, thank you. So why do we win also to opening opposition? Because they tell us that there is a higher standard and that the procedure is going to be really good because there are a lot of phases that this treatment has to go through in order to be approved, in order to be applicable to these people. So even if that happens, I think that on a principle level, it is wrong, and I have already explained you that. Okay, but second of all, the consequences. Why are they wrong? I think that what happens is that there is a creation of a narrative between these people, and Isabel has already explained that. How this narrative is not only spread in companies that really see these people as objects because they are easy approachable and their autonomy is really conditioned and they can access to this because they have no other choice. Okay, they do not make free decisions. But second of all, within their communities, because they see their bodies as something that they can use to make profit. Not only that, but because they see that the only way to get some kind of healthcare is through the selling of their bodies to these companies. Okay, and I think that this is really a harmful narrative to be spread within this community. That's why I think that on a consequence level, and also on a principles level, we win as the closing government. So proud to propose and so proud to debate with Isabel.
Thank you, Government Whip, for that speech. We'd now like to call upon the Opposition Whip to close their case for us. Yeah. Opposition Whip, can you hear us?
I think he's having some network issue.
Yes. Is it Amechi?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Oh, okay.
Oh, hi, sorry. I think I server muted them. I will unmute them now.
Okay, thank you, Mo. I think.
Yeah, okay. I unmuted him. He should be fine.
Thank you. Opposition Whip, can you hear us? Take. Okay, Opposition Whip is typing. Okay, could you please speak into the mic? I can't hear you. I don't know if anyone else can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yay! Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you. Okay, great.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna start after count up. Is that okay with everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Two. Oh, let me set my timer. Three, two, one. Panel. Dominic told you a couple of things that are very important in this debate. He gave you two yardsticks to determine the winner of this debate. First, he told you in a world where we have better clinical trial, and secondly, in a world where we protect those uninsured people better. Because recognize that the problem with governments is that they fail to understand that in instances where you did not include those uninsured, poor, and vulnerable people during your clinical testing, it means that when there occur an to those drugs, even when you make them generic.
Come again, come again. We can't hear
In
you.
that cycle, even when those drugs are free and affordable for everyone. So, what you have is a continuous oppression of those poor people. Recognize that these individuals are people that naturally will not have access to drugs. So, they will not face with two jeopardy. First is that they don't have the financial incentive or franchise to purchase these drugs. But secondly, even when you make these drugs available, well, when they become generic drugs, the drugs will not be effective in their body because they were not factored in during the creation of these drugs. So these individuals are left with two options. First is for either for they engage in self-medication, or secondly for them to patronize wax, which is something that degrades their dignity, which is something closing government cares for. Second thing Dominic explained to you that is important is how corporations, especially pharmaceutical corporations, have less recognized
Opposition good.
that they, can you hear me?
It just cut out, but I think we're fine now. I pause your time at 2 minutes, so you can just continue, and we'll let you know if it breaks.
Am I audible enough?
Yes, now you are. Thank you.
Am I free to start again?
Continue from where you stopped.
You can
Continue from where
continue
you
from
stopped.
2 minutes. It's fine.
Okay. The second problem with the second thing Dominic told you is how corporations, pharmaceutical corporations, have less incentive to produce harmful drugs. Why? Recognize that opening a on which these people can make profits, right? So when they tarnish their effect, they are less likely going to sell, which means that they will make profit. So that incentive is
Opposition with, I'm sorry.
explain to
Very
you
difficult
that
to hear you. Could move to
that
another
there is a huge that this volunteer for them to be used for this clinic.
I'm sorry, opposition whip, but we cannot hear you, and this is going to be very difficult. Tiamo, should we ask him to leave the server and then re-enter? Because I'm a bit worried. So, opposition whip, please, I'm so sorry, but could you please just leave the server and then re-enter so that we can all hear you, because I think it would be to your disadvantage if we don't hear you. I'm just going to copy the link for you so that you have it nearby. It's just to all the teams, sorry for this, but we just need to give Jimmy a fair option. Okay, so I see that our whip has left. Back. Could you please do a voice check? Opposition whip, can you hear me? Okay, so our coordinator has suggested that his team member do the turn. But we have protocol for this. So that we can finish the debate. Well, not entirely. It's just opposition was 3 minutes in, so I guess you can continue from there. I'm just worried about train of thought. I have notes until spoke about self-medication. Okay. Yes. We want to start, we can't hear him. Opposition whip, please do a voice check.
I don't think he can even hear. He said he can't hear.
I see that he's not unmuted. Unmute. Thank you to the CAT. At controversial, since you are the team member that can hear, if we can't get the speaker to return, then you're going to have to make a decision between stopping your case here, or completing as an iron, but then that comes with the consequence of forfeiting, advancing in the 20. Okay, thank you, Gabriel. Oh, there's a text. No, opposition with no one can hear you. While this is happening, thank you to all the speakers and for your patience. Just want it up. Okay, I agree with. I think we can give opposition with one last. I guess we can judge from what we have because we have 3 minutes worth of speaking. But let's just see what happens. This is quite unfortunate, but with regards to the time that has elapsed, we might have. Thank you to all the teams for your speeches. You all spoke really well. Just a reminder that we won't be having feedback or results of this group. They'll be announced later. And my panelists, if we have an AOK from the all call, we'll just move to the deliberation room. But well done to all the speakers, and good luck.